Imagine if a habit you've never been taught to question was quietly leaking your focus, creativity, and spiritual power every single week. Semen retention, sometimes called seed retention, has become a huge topic online, but most discussions stop at surface level benefits like more confidence or better workouts. Today, we're going much deeper. We're asking a daring question: what spiritual gifts might actually awaken when you choose not to ejaculate for a period of time and instead consciously redirect that energy? We'll explore reports of heightened intuition, sharper manifestation, intense synchronicities, deeper meditations, and even changes in how people experience dreams and subtle energies. This is not about shame, repression, or morality. It's about energy management, awareness, and choice. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll have a clear, spiritual framework for retention and enough nuance to decide whether it belongs in your own path. Before we talk about spiritual gifts, let's set the frame. Semen retention at its core is the intentional choice to limit or pause ejaculation, usually for a defined period, while staying conscious of your sexual energy rather than suppressing it. Throughout this video, we'll explore how many traditions, Taoist, yogic, mystical, view semen as a refined life force, a condensed form of chi or prana. We'll connect that idea to modern experiences, more presence, stronger willpower, and sometimes startling spiritual openings. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your body, and this is not medical advice. Instead, I'll offer perspectives, practices, and cautions so you can experiment safely and intelligently. If you're into deep, honest explorations like this, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell because we dive into topics most channels won't touch. And watch through to the end. The last sections will give you a practical roadmap to apply this in your own life. Let's start with how ancient traditions describe this energy. In many yogic and tantric lineages, semen is said to be ojas, refined vital essence that supports immunity, mental clarity, and spiritual perception. Taoist alchemy speaks of Jing, a foundational life force stored in the kidneys and reproductive system, which can be conserved and transformed into qi and shen, higher forms of energy and spirit. Whether you take these terms literally or symbolically, the pattern is clear. Sexual essence is seen as precious, not disposable. When you repeatedly ejaculate without awareness, it's like spending your savings daily on small impulses. When you conserve, you accumulate spiritual capital. Over time, that reserve can be transmuted into creativity, insight, and a deeper sense of presence. You might not feel this in a week, but many practitioners report that after several retention cycles, meditation sharpens, distractions lose power, and their inner world grows brighter and more ordered. One of the first spiritual shifts people notice on retention is in consciousness and awareness. When you stop dissipating that intense charge through constant stimulation and release, it doesn't simply vanish. It looks for new channels. For many, that energy pushes upward, fueling focus and introspection. You may find thoughts becoming clearer, like static has been reduced in your mental field. Meditation sessions that once felt dull can suddenly become vivid, with stronger concentration and a sense of inner brightness. This heightened awareness often exposes your habits and shadows. Your cravings, fears, and coping mechanisms become easier to see, sometimes uncomfortably so. That's actually a gift. Semen retention, when practiced mindfully, functions like a spotlight on your inner world. It accelerates self-knowledge. The key is to meet this expanded awareness with honesty, breathwork, and grounding, rather than trying to numb out with new distractions like binge scrolling or junk food. Another commonly reported shift is intuition and inner guidance becoming noticeably stronger. When you conserve sexual energy, your nervous system often stabilizes, less up and down from porn, hookups, or compulsive release. In that calmer baseline, subtle signals become easier to hear: gut feelings, quiet hunches, inner whispers. Some men describe suddenly knowing which people drain them, which opportunities feel aligned, or when something is simply off long before logic catches up. This isn't magic. It's the nervous system freed from constant overstimulation, able to process more data and pattern recognition beneath conscious thought. Spiritually, many interpret this as their higher self, guides, or soul finally having bandwidth to be heard. Retention also forces you into more present awareness of your body, tension in the gut, tightness in the chest, warmth in the heart. Those sensations often carry intuitive messages if you're willing to pause and listen instead of automatically seeking arousal or distraction. Let's talk about manifestation and willpower because this is where a lot of people get intrigued. Semen retention by itself is not a wish granting machine, but it does create conditions that support effective manifestation. Here's how. First, you gain more raw energy. When you're not constantly recovering from dopamine crashes and physical depletion, you simply have more fuel to put into goals. Second, your ability to delay gratification improves. You practice saying no to immediate pleasure in service of a longer vision, and that exact muscle is what manifestation requires. Third, your mental imagery often intensifies. Visualizations feel charged, emotionally real. Combine those pieces, and your intentions stop being flimsy daydreams. They become backed by disciplined energy. Many men report that during longer retention streaks, synchronicities cluster, opportunities appear, and they actually follow through. Is that purely psychological or metaphysical? Debatable. But functionally, you become the kind of person whose energy matches his stated desires. Creativity is one of the clearest areas where semen retention can unlock spiritual gifts. Sexual energy and creative energy are deeply intertwined. Both are about generating life, whether in physical form or in ideas, art, and solutions. When you conserve and redirect that force, you may feel an almost restless pressure. If you don't channel it, it becomes frustration or anxiety. But if you consciously pour it into music, writing, business building, or service, it can feel like a creative floodgate opens. Many artists and entrepreneurs throughout history have spoken, often indirectly, about periods of sexual restraint coinciding with bursts of genius. Spiritually, this can feel like becoming a clearer conduit. Inspiration descends more easily, and your work carries a different depth or potency. The practice here is intentional transmutation, journaling instead of scrolling, painting instead of porn, vision planning instead of aimless flirting, so that the raw charge actually becomes something meaningful. For many practitioners, semen retention changes the inner emotional landscape. At first, it may feel like emotions get more intense. That's because ejaculation is often used unconsciously as an emotional regulator, an escape from stress, loneliness, shame, or boredom. Remove that outlet, and those feelings surface. This is where the spiritual work really begins. Instead of dissipating the energy, you learn to sit with it, breathe through it, and actually feel what's underneath the urge. Over time, this builds emotional resilience and self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can hold powerful sensations without collapsing into compulsion. Spiritual gifts here include deeper compassion for yourself, more empathy for others' struggles, and an authentic strength that isn't based on bravado. Your heart can open more when your system isn't constantly shocked by intense peaks and crashes. Many men report crying for the first time in years, forgiving old wounds, or finally facing childhood patterns, all catalyzed by the simple choice to retain and stay present. Dream life and subtle perception often shift dramatically on retention. When your body isn't constantly repairing from frequent ejaculation and late-night stimulation, sleep quality can improve, and with that, dream recall and lucidity. Many men report more vivid, symbolic, or even prophetic dreams during sustained periods of retention. Some begin experiencing spontaneous lucid dreams or out-of-body sensations, where they feel themselves leaving their body or observing from above. Others notice an increased sensitivity to energy, tingling in the spine, pressure between the eyebrows, warmth in the hands when meditating or praying. From a spiritual lens, retention concentrates life force, which then seeks expression through higher channels like the third eye and crown. Skeptics might call this suggestibility, but regardless, the inner experience is real and often transformative. The key is grounding, journaling dreams, staying humble, and not chasing phenomena as trophies, but using them as feedback from your subconscious and soul. Now we need to address sexual polarity and presence. Semen retention, when done consciously, often amplifies masculine polarity, not macho posturing, but a grounded, directed presence that others can feel. With more contained energy, you may walk differently, make eye contact more easily, and speak with less hesitation. Women and men alike might respond to this as a subtle magnetism or safety. Spiritually, you're embodying a more coherent field. Your thoughts, words, and actions begin to line up. However, there's a shadow side. If you retain without heart, this energy can become rigid, controlling, or arrogant. True spiritual retention invites you to couple that intensity with softness, humility, and service. Rather than trying to dominate, you become a steady anchor that uplifts spaces you enter. Practices like heart breathing, gratitude, and sincere listening keep your amplified presence from turning into spiritual ego or a performative alpha mask. We can't talk about spiritual gifts without mentioning Kundalini and the spine. Many yogic teachings describe sexual energy as the raw material that, when sublimated, fuels Kundalini, the coiled serpent energy at the base of the spine that rises through the chakras. On retention, some men begin feeling heat, tingling, or waves moving up the back during meditation, prayer, or even random moments of stillness. This can be beautiful, but also destabilizing if you push too hard. Forcing retention, combining it with extreme breathwork or psychedelics, may overstimulate your system, leading to anxiety, insomnia, or emotional volatility. The spiritual invitation is gentle refinement, not speed-running enlightenment. Ground yourself with simple practices, walking barefoot on earth, strength training, slow nasal breathing, adequate sleep. If Kundalini-like sensations arise, treat them with respect and curiosity, not as a badge of honor. The gift isn't fireworks, it's a gradually awakened spine that becomes a living antenna for higher guidance. Let's clear up myths because misinformation around semen retention is massive. First, retention is not a magic cure-all. It won't instantly fix social anxiety, heal trauma, or make you spiritually superior. It's a catalyst, not a replacement for inner work. Second, more is not always better. Extremely long streaks without emotional processing, physical expression, or balanced sexuality can lead to irritability, obsession, or even health issues for some. Third, wet dreams and occasional releases are normal. They don't erase your progress or your spiritual growth. What matters is your overall relationship with sexual energy. Are you compulsively leaking it or consciously choosing how you express it? Finally, retention is not only for celibates. Many men in relationships practice cyclical retention, alternating periods of conservation with intentional, connected lovemaking. The spiritual gift here is sovereignty. You're no longer a slave to impulses or dogma, but an aware steward of your own life force. So how do you actually practice semen retention in a spiritual way, not just as a streak counter? Start by setting a clear intention beyond no fap. For example, I'm conserving my energy to deepen my intuition, create meaningful work, and connect more authentically. Next, pair retention with daily transmutation, physical training, breathwork, cold showers, creative sessions, or service to others. This gives the energy somewhere to flow. Third, build a reflective practice. Journal urges, emotions, dreams, and synchronicities. Over weeks, you'll see patterns that reveal your personal spiritual curriculum. Fourth, cultivate a relationship with the sacred, prayer, mantra, contemplative walks, or simply speaking honestly to whatever you consider higher intelligence. Without this, retention can devolve into ego and control. Finally, stay flexible. If you slip, don't spiral into shame. Ask, what triggered this? What did I not want to feel? That question alone can be a profound spiritual teacher. Let's crystallize the main takeaways. Semen retention, when approached consciously, is less about counting days and more about alchemy, transforming raw sexual charge into clarity, creativity, and presence. Ancient frameworks like Ojas, Jing, and Kundalini point to a simple idea. Your sexual essence is potent life force. Conserving it for periods can heighten awareness, amplify intuition, and deepen your capacity for manifestation and emotional healing. But it's not a shortcut to enlightenment or a substitute for therapy, shadow work, or honest relationships. The spiritual gifts it unlocks, vivid dreams, synchronicities, grounded masculinity, subtle energy perception, are invitations, not trophies. They ask you to become more responsible with your body, mind, and heart. The most important metric isn't the length of your streak, it's the quality of your presence, your integrity, and how much your life begins to align with your highest values and calling. If this exploration of semen retention and spiritual gifts resonated, don't let it stay as theory. Choose one concrete action today. Maybe you commit to a 7-day retention experiment paired with daily journaling and 10 minutes of meditation. Maybe you have an honest conversation with yourself about how you currently use sexual energy to numb emotion. Or maybe you simply pause before your next urge and ask, what am I truly seeking right now? If you want more deep dives into energy, consciousness, and practical spirituality, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on so you don't miss upcoming videos. Share this with a friend who's on a similar journey. These conversations are easier when we're not walking alone. And in the comments, let me know your experiences or questions around retention, what you've noticed, what's challenging, what you're curious about next. Your story might be the guidance someone else desperately needs.